All right, shalom, and welcome to another Bible study that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain. My name is Esaac ben Israel, and I'm the elder priest of the United Congregation of Israel, and I'm joined here. I got a newbie with me. He not new, but, my brother Elijah. Shalom, brother.
Shalom.
All right, so we got a couple questions that we want to get into. Maybe one or two that we were not able to get to last week. One of the questions deals with, it says, my question is concerning the laws of the land. Let me go back to the read. It says, my question is concerning how we've learned and been conditioned to the laws of the land. We've known for years that there's a set of interpretation of laws for us and another for other Americans. That is absolutely so true. So it certainly makes it hard to obey all the laws of the land. However, in trying to live righteously, I'm noticing that is an issue I'm having with following the whole law as I learn it more and deeper levels. Would you have any advice on this? I guess my first question is, which law are you having an issue with? All right, that's question number one, because a lot of times when I hear people talk about obey the laws of the land, it's normally something that they don't like, that they're trying to use the law of America to not do. All right, even though we know that this is like the most twisted law ever. All right. You can't understand this law. This law was not made for you to understand. So when you talk about obey the laws of the land, you have to imagine Yahweh has given us, this Torah. That was our law of the land. Here, there's another law. There's what you do in your religious practice, and then there's what you do out in your secular life. Well, that was the same thing with us. That was a part of our culture. So when you talk about being able to understand it, they walked in it daily. There are things here, the people who pass the laws don't even know what's in it. One law may be 450 pages, and the person who presented the law didn't write it. There's a group of lawyers who gets together, write up these bills and what have you, push them to the congressman, then they push that as if they came up with it. They don't even really know what's in it. And if you miss 2 or 3 paragraphs on page 300, you might end up realizing that you have okayed some evil. Like, for instance, they will push a law that says the Farm Act. Somewhere in the Farm Act will be you getting a chip implanted in your arm. Now, you'll go down there and vote for the Farm Act because people told you, it's a good idea. Let's vote for the Farm Act. You ain't seen the bill. You haven't seen 400 pages. But based on what you're hearing from other people, you go down to your local voting place and you put okay on it. Then when they start coming to your house and saying, all right, it's time for us to go ahead and put that chip in your arm. Now you like, no, man, where you getting that from? You voted for it. What, you didn't read page 386? You didn't see page 1. How do you know what's on page 386? That is the wickedness of this place. Yahweh doesn't operate like that, but man does. So we have to understand when we're dealing with the law of the land, most of the times what people will do, especially when they get in this book and they start reading things about people having multiple marriage, then they turn around and say, well, obey the laws of the land. So what they want to then use is Yahweh's law to get compounded by man's law. Then when somebody break in their house and the court let them out, now they want to go back to Yahweh law. No, man, he still should cut his hand off. Wait a minute. Hold on. You went way back. But it's interesting how we jump in and out of that as it suits our particular situation at the moment. It's not even our particular situation all the time. It is our particular situation at the moment. You know, you have people that says, you know, the law is nailed to the cross. Soon as somebody steals something of theirs, they call in the law. If the law is nailed to the cross, why are you worried? Why don't you just charge that to the game and move on? So this is one of those things that we have that's normal here, that you don't understand what the law says. And even they will tell you in a court of law, ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. Check that out. Nobody, when they pass a new law, you know, if they don't say anything about it on Channel 2 or Channel 5, you know, 3 days before, you know, you really don't know it. There are laws that are going into effect every year. We don't have any idea what those are. How can you possibly obey the laws of the land? When we say obey the laws of the land, what we're really meaning, no robbing, stealing, things like that. The other laws, man, you don't know what those are. You walk across that street at the wrong place, you just broke the law. And understand these laws, you know, one of the statements about there's a whole different law system, of course it is. They made loitering laws for us so that if we just stood out on the corner, we went to jail. So when you talk about obey the laws of the land, how far are you going to go with that? Because the law in Decatur is different than the law in Decula. And it's not necessarily the law itself, it's the enforcement of the law. The same law may be in Decula, but what happens is they're not going to enforce it because of the individuals who are there. Then that same law will be applied to the strictest point in another side of town when the people look different. So that's something, a whole can of worms when you get to this whole obey the laws of the land. So I want to go to start in Deuteronomy chapter 17, because there's one thing that we don't understand that is constantly keeping us behind the 8 ball. Deuteronomy chapter 17, and I want to start at verse 14.
And when thou art come unto the land which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Now,
here's the first problem with dealing with Israel. We want what all the other nations have. We want what other people have. When you say, I will do this like all the nations that are about me, Yahweh says that Israel is set to be a peculiar people, peculiar nation. We don't want to be peculiar. You want to be just like everybody else. Go ahead.
Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brethren.
All right. You may not set a king over you who is not your brother. So what then happens? Then all of these things, we go out and we vote for these people. They then get in charge. What kind of rules you think they're going to make? People really thought they were doing something when Obama got president. Oh man, an African American is in the White House. First thing came out of Obama's mouth is, my people were not descendants of slaves. My wife's people were. What do you think he was saying? I ain't the same as y'all. Y'all ex-slaves, not me. He was saying right off the rip, no, I'm a real African American. You are African-American. It's a difference. He automatically let us know that his people and our people were not the same. Then what laws did he pass? On his way out, he made sure he got all these rights for the LGBTQ community. Not one thing for us. We didn't say a thing. And now you have the vice president now, Kamala. What is she doing? Pushing LGBTQ rights. So we vote for these people. These people get in and then do their own agenda. Even when, who was it? Candace Owens had a little recording where she was talking about that she ended up looking up where the funding went for Black Lives Matter. They got all these millions for Black Lives Matter. Everything they set up was for whatever them letters is, all them letters. LGBTQ. That's what they set up with the money. All this Black Lives Matter, everybody marching, everybody doing this about, people getting, unarmed people getting shot by the police. What do they set up? Gay houses. But then if you say something about it, then now you're accused of being something. But that money was supposed to be gathered for one reason, but it ended up being used for some other things. But once again, these are the individuals who are in control. They are pushing the agenda. So when you look at Kamala Harris going to another country, not to talk to these people, into Africa, by the way, not to talk to them about stabilizing their country, but to talk to them about passing gay-friendly laws. This is what your agenda and your job is? This is what you do with your, elected position? So when you talk about following, the law of the land, you have to really wonder who are these laws being made for? Because even the ones that we supposed to vote in, even the ones that are supposed to be us, look at what they do when they get in there. Go ahead.
Verse 16. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as Yahweh hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book, out of that which is before the priests of the Levites.
Right. Now, how many of the presidents you think wrote a copy of the Bible? Hey, Obama went and put on the yarmulke and went over there to pose with the Israelis. Almost every president has. Then they also go over there and kiss the ring of the Pope. So Yahweh is telling you, okay, if you don't, have a certain kind of leader, I'm gonna tell you that your laws is gonna be strange. So then you have to examine what kind of leaders we have. How you gonna follow the laws of this land? The laws of this land say you can't pray in school, but kids can have a vivid LGBTQ learning course. But they can't pray, and they can't talk about anything from the Bible, but they can have RuPaul to come in and teach the children. I can't understand how anybody can even say out of their mouth, obey the laws of this land. This is something that I understood generations back. But this law is getting so strange now. It is really a shame that people are still trying, to push this. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yahweh his Elohim, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he return not aside from the commandments to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel.
Right. So then this law is supposed to help keep him grounded into the things that he's supposed to be about. That's what reading this. So here's the thing. You go out with other individuals, you go to other places and you pick up things. Then you come back to your stabilizing source and make sure you keep reading out of this. What happens, the further you get from reading here, and then you go off, you might send your kids off to college. Okay, guess what? Now every day they are around different kind of individuals. If they don't come back and feed from their power source, the other power source is going to take over. There's a reason. He says, you read from it all the days of your life, least you get puffed up. How is that happening? With all the other individuals that's around you. Telling you this, telling you that, offering you this, offering you that. And you don't get the base because you're not going back to that. And all this other stuff is starting to overrun it. And that's something that we have to think about. You have something?
You know, one of the things we're talking about the law, and when you look at the laws of this particular country, you have to look at the acts of righteousness, and that's based upon the foundation, which is Yahweh's law. When you get into Romans 13, and it talks about every soul being subject to the higher powers, the Christian network and people will use that to talk about the United States government because, of course, it is a power in this country. And we know that they have used the Old Testament and our Torah to kind of base the foundation of their law, but they've slanted it. It's crooked. I mean, you can look at just the testimony where Yahweh says, by 2 or more witnesses, everything is established. Mm-hmm. And we use witnesses in criminal prosecution, but they'll use one witness. The witness can be blind. Mm-hmm. It could be dark. The way they twist the book. So it's like you have to go through this law and determine those things that are correct and what are not. And it's the situation where, the scripture says, obey Elohim rather than man. So when you get to those slanted, crooked parts of the law, then you're going to have to do due diligence and know that your obedience is going to have to be to the Most High.
One of those things that they have set up, they play with this. I want to go to Romans 13 because what they end up doing is this part is used a lot of times to say be obedient to what the order that they have going on. All right. So even if we look at how they have set up bankruptcy, this comes from Deuteronomy. That's the reason why it's called chapter 7 and chapter 13. That's where bankruptcy comes from. Okay. So now here we go. Now we so proud. Oh no, I ain't claiming no bankruptcy. Donald Trump done claimed bankruptcy about 26 times. And he richer than every last one of us. If we put our whole families together, everybody in your family gather together and throw all their money in the pool, we still don't get to the bottom level of his money. But we too proud to claim any of those things. It's a law. When you talk about obey the law of the land, this is what Donald Trump would heckle people. He says the law. What you talking about? It's legal. He said, I know y'all not going to close these loopholes because your buddies use them too. He arrogantly talked to the Democrats. He said, y'all can talk about all this. Yeah, I didn't pay no taxes. He said, I ain't going to pay none next year either. And you're not going to close the loophole. You know why? Because your buddies use it. They went, and then they went and sat down. because they knew they wasn't going to change those loopholes, you know, so he can turn around and use all of that to wipe off his gains and pay no taxes. That's legal. So it's legal to overtax the poor and give the rich all of it. Those are the laws of the land. So how far you going to go with this law of the land thing? That's also for this man to be mega rich and keep claiming bankruptcy. That's the law of the land. And he'll tell you, it's not my fault you don't understand it. It's your problem that you don't understand that law. Let's go to Romans 13, and we're going to start at verse 1.
Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but Elohim. The powers that be are ordained of Elohim. Whosoever, therefore, resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of Elohim, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of Elohim to thee for good.
Right. So for he is the minister of Elohim to you for good. So it's talking about your spiritual leaders. But understand how they then play this game. Now, you have most of this being pushed by, the Catholics as they're, making sure that they're saying, obey those that have, the rule over you. But understand, they also didn't want you to have your own Bible. They also didn't want you to be able to read or understand what was in it. They wanted you to have to come to them for every bit of understanding. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind when you're reading some of these things. All right? Go ahead.
For if he is the minister of Elohim to thee for good, but if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he breatheth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil.
Now, you hardly even see a preacher or a teacher angry. Today, if you're gonna make money, you got to smile the entire time of your service. If you want to be rich, you got to get your Joel Osteen on. He don't frown. If one of them lights fall off the ceiling and hit Joel in his toe, he gonna smile for the rest of the 45 minutes that program on, because that smile is what bring those checks in. This says he doesn't bear the sword in vain. That means he cut with this word. But when people cut with the word, when they get cut with the word, they hold back on their offering. So these ministers don't want to cut with the word to try to make the people better. So they're worrying about the people liking them instead of doing the job that they're supposed to do. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are Elohim's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Renderer, therefore, to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything, but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness.
Now, when it comes down to obeying the law of the land, this is where you want to be. All that other stuff, you're not going to be able to understand that stuff. They make and change laws constantly. Constantly. You need a lawyer to understand the laws. You need a tax attorney to understand their tax laws, because what was law 5 years ago ain't legal today. But you know what stays constant? These things. And Yahweh has made these things such a staple in every place. We get in this book, Before the Law, and you'll read our forefathers going from place to place. And they might have had, some run-ins with these Africans. They automatically had this thing. They knew what adultery was, and there was no law. From people to people, they knew, hey man, why did you tell me she was your sister? I could have lain with her and brought, guilt upon myself. These people didn't have our law. How they know that? There's certain things that's a staple no matter where you go. You don't have to understand their language. You go somewhere, you understand very clearly that woman belonged to that man. You do something to that woman, you're going to have to deal with that man. You ain't got to speak their language. I tell you, a whooping gets translated in any language that you can possibly speak. Understand that. And here is basis all the way. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. You don't have to learn no other language to understand this. This is the same wherever you go. So the things that Yahweh wants you to put your deepest thought in, that's the reason he gave you the 10. And people say, it's 613. Yeah. Focus on the 10. Yeah, I know it's 630. When you start working on those 10 and you get them 10, then you start working on some other stuff. But here's where your grade coming from. All right? You can't be on law 52, but you can't do law 4. That ain't gonna work. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not covet, and if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
And let me tell you something. Coveting goes so deep. Coveting is the beginning of every other sin. It is something that we don't even consider. We want something. Why we want it? Because we saw somebody else have it. Sometimes we don't even want nothing at all until we see somebody else with it. Coveting, that's a nice brother. That's a nice sister. Now somebody desiring this, that's the beginning of theft. Before you stole, you coveted. You looked at that car. Man, that's a nice car. Now you're contemplating how you can get it. Before you stole it, you coveted. You desired it in an evil way. Coveting goes deep. You can have people been in the word for 20 years, standing right in the midst of coveting and swear they ain't did nothing wrong. That's how slippery and deceptive coveting is. So I wouldn't spend my time worrying about all these other things, because you could be standing in the midst of sin in the middle of the congregation and think you all right. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfilling of the law, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of the sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly, as in the day, not in rioting or drunkenness, not in chambering or wantonness, not in strife or envying, but put ye on the Adonai Yeshua, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof.
If you made a provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof, that means coveting has taken hold, and now it is leading you. See, this is one of those things where, people will get us to strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. You worrying about all of these other things, and that basic 10 is tearing you up. And that's something that we have to consider. I want to go to Daniel 7 because I want to read something out of here. Daniel 7. And I just want to read a couple of things here. See, when we talk about, obeying the laws of the land, we have to understand that the people who make the laws of the land are no doubt indeed our enemies. We keep trying to think that we can fit in these places and it's going to be okay. Your enemies are the ones that are making the laws. How deep are you going to be able to follow that? Daniel chapter 7, I want you to start at verse 21.
I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom.
When the time comes, the saints are going to possess the kingdom. But understand, their horn makes war with the saints. How you think they do that? How you think? And they're not just driving down the street, just openly picking us off, sitting on top of a Toyota truck with a 50 cal riding in the hood. How you think they made war? Rules and regulations. Laws. So that when they take your house, when they do all of these things, it's legal. There are whole communities up in Forsyth County that we see that are these $1 million homes. All of that whole part was taken from black people. They orchestrate one crime, and you got to understand, this is a part of their amendment. Black people can be free. This is what they call a 14th Amendment amendment citizen. They said, you are free except if you commit a crime. Okay, so slavery is illegal unless you do something wrong. What was that? A loophole. So then all they have to do is make a law to make sure that you're a criminal, and guess what? You go back to being a slave. It was right in front of us. We partying. We setting off fireworks. We think we free. They in the back laughing. Because they already know exactly how they going to make us back slaves. They are using their legislation. When you don't understand that that's what the law is, then we go around letting people tell us that obey the law of the land thing. They didn't even have a industrialized prison complex until slavery was over. They go hand in hand. They are the same thing. So then they have created the mindset, oh, these black people criminals. So then we even think that they set this whole thing up. And then we fall for this trying to be over righteous when this law was always against you. From the first ink on the piece of paper, it was against you. And then one thing I ain't never heard? A Gentile come and tell me, obey the laws of the land. Imagine that now. The people who filling up the prison houses, those are the people, the only ones I done heard. Obey the laws of the land, bro. Go ahead.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. You have to understand that it's the way they've always used their legislation to pinpoint us. Black codes, the slave codes, Jim Crow, and all of these things. And all of those things were the way they used their legislation. But, we know that this place is Babylon. We talk about this place being the daughter of Babylon. But yet and still, when we go back and we read the story of Babylon and even the way they used their legislation back in the day, it says, in Daniel 4 that Yahweh gives the kingdom to the basis of men and sets up who
he
will.
wants over.
And so you can't use the fact that these people are in charge of a land and making legislation as to whether or not they're righteous.
Now their law is worth following. It was law that was given to Daniel that says, you're not able to, you must not pray. He said, man, I ain't following that law. That was law. It was law to say, when you hear, this music, that you bow down and worship. I ain't following that law. And let me tell you something. Daniel is mentioned in a class of righteousness that you can't find but one or two other people in when it come down to mentioning people of this book. He didn't follow the laws of the land. He followed the laws of the land as long as it didn't interfere with the law of his Elohim. Soon as it did, guess which one he chose? And that's something that we have to deal with. Keep going.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces.
All right. So these kingdoms then are going to break in pieces. Do you understand what kind of foul laws are being made for them to do that? Keep going.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High.
Great words against the Most High. All right. So what do you think his law is going to be like? Go ahead.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
So then who is he punishing? Okay, go ahead.
And think to change times and laws.
Stop. This is what he does. This is what he uses for his power. When you think about what happens here, this same concept is being followed. The law is used to strong arm other individuals. I had a little truck I was trying to sell. I had it sitting out in front of the house. Some people had the house foreclosed on, and some Gentiles bought the house. Next thing I know, the police come down the street and went to every house. Told them how they need to move their cars out the street. What do you think happened? The Gentile made everybody cleaned up the street so they could get ready to sell the house that they just bought through foreclosure. They used the police as their personal arm for business. And then it's a black dude. He going from house to house. So he come to my house and he already know he know I'm just not going to, he can look at me and tell, he looking down, he ain't looking up before I get out. I was like, so what's going on? Yeah, that's your truck? It's in front of my house, ain't it? Of course it's my truck. What kind of question is that? You see the for sale sign in the truck? Yeah, well, it don't have a tag on it. So, I'm going to have to get you to move it. I said, man, it's amazing how these folks can go in business and just use you as their personal enforcement. You think they're going to give you a portion of the money? He couldn't even look at me. And it's the same house that they was selling that they pulled a guy out in his underwear on the coldest day of the year. That's how they got that house. See, while all that was happening and the SWAT team done pulled them, the law, while the law came, pulled this man and his family out the house in his underwear. Coldest day in the year, he's standing there in his underwear. On the top of the hill was 2 Gentiles sitting in the car. After the police secured and pulled everything out, had him hemmed up, then they walked the Gentiles all the way through the house. And then they walked out the house and walked them back to their car. And they sat on the top of the hill Then a whole team came and unloaded all the contents of that house and put it in the grass. All that was the law. That man died 30 days later.
Oh.
There were people that said, man, he died of a broken heart, bro. And I watched his teenage son. I looked at his eyes when that would happen. That boy may be some kind of serial killer after that. That boy wasn't right. That didn't sit right. And they wouldn't let this man put on no clothes. And our whole neighborhood is standing out. We kind of got to go off a little bit. Like, what the hell are y'all doing? Then they finally let the man put on some... Now, his clothes in the grass. Because they yanking all this stuff out. But it was a while before they do that. All of this is their law. When it says, think to change times and laws, it is amazing to me that our people are the ones the hardest. The reason you even thinking about it, because we are the ones who will come to you and say, obey the law of the land. It's like the slave master has taught us, how to look after his plantation. You ever notice you go to the bank? Who gonna give you the hardest time about cashing that check? Us?
Yeah.
The white girl gonna cash that check so fast because she does not feel any responsibility. They make the black people in there feel personally responsible for every cent that leaves that bank, and it's not their money. So they're gonna ask you 4-5 times. They need to see your ID. They need to see your baby picture. They want to see the birth certificate with the little foot on it. And then they want to put your foot right there at the teller window and compare the feet picture. What are you doing? This is not your money. This is my money. But here is how they have the whole system set up, to where we're going to be the harshest toward one another about things that were made to oppress us. I'm sorry, did you have something?
Yeah, and we're talking about the laws and the law of this land. Just remember, the Republican body in Mississippi is definite. Matter of fact, I think they pushed that bill through where they're calling it these new laws that they have recently reenacted, Jim Crow 2.0. And Missouri is contemplating some things along the same line. So, they're going to show us what they're going to do with these laws. These laws are unjust. This country is unjust.
Right.
And all you have to do is compare the laws that they enact to what our Torah says.
Right. And when you look at it, basically, their law says that they can kill a so-called African American and get away with it. You have to, at first I used to hear why people would get on their license and they wouldn't check African American. Once I started studying, I said, I understand why. They said, no, I ain't that. Other. So why are you choosing other? I ain't that. Because you got another set of rules about a citizen with a lowercase c. See, folks don't even know. Just like you look in this book. There's God with a lowercase g, and there's God with a capital G. There's a citizen with a lowercase c, and there's a citizen with a capital C. Right. Let's go to our 1 Timothy.
I need to update my license. When you talk about, just us being one of the ones who, come the hardest, you have to consider just how even we as being people who are in the Word, what happens and how we deal. I want you to go 1 Timothy chapter 1 and start at verse 6. Knowing this, that the law is not made.
What are you talking about? Go ahead, 6. Start at 6.
6. from which some having... Okay, hold on.
You're right.
Okay. From which some having swerved have turned aside onto vain jangling, desiring to be the teachers of the law.
Right. Now understand. Now you have people on the corner claiming that they Israelites, and they got on their costume. They went to Party City. They must have got it in Buck, because they got them Party City Buck outfits. And they throwing around law. All right, they have a priestly outfit on, and if anybody knew the word enough, they would automatically say, wait a minute now, if you have on a priest outfit, the priest have a head cover. What you doing? If anybody knew 5 minutes worth of word, they would automatically call them out on this full-fledged costume with no head cover. All right, desiring to be teachers of the law. Go ahead.
Understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm, but we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully.
Right. Now, they're going to tell you, brother, wear your fringes. If you don't have on fringes, then you're not a real Hebrew. Now, they've made the thing that's supposed to remind you to keep the law, they've made the thing the law. Read that.
Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient.
Now, wait a minute. So when Yahweh told us, wear the fringes on your garb so that it will be a reminder for you to keep the law, do you think he gave that to us because we was obedient or because we were disobedient? Mana. So here you go. The people who need to remember the law at all times. So they got fringes everywhere. Am I against fringes? Absolutely not. But the day that I don't wear fringes, the last thing I need is some purple dude standing in my face telling me, oh, you must not be no Hebrew because you ain't wearing your fringes today. Because, these people don't go, they go swimming with their fringes. They got fringes on the swim trunks. They got bad fringes.
Car fringes.
Fringes on the car. So, but the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient. So maybe that's what the lawless and the disobedient need, to constantly remind them to walk in the word. And if that's what you need, go ahead. But don't hold everybody else accountable to your weakness. Go ahead.
For the ungodly and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers.
Right. See, they need those fringes on because the game that they're playing, they don't have this thing about marriage. What they do is get married, divorce, married, divorce, married, divorce. That's a whoremonger. See, people want to say one thing. This New Testament, Yahshua says, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. We act like we don't know that. We act like he didn't say that. We think whoremongering is, the people who, they just go from here to here. No. Them people, the serial monogamists, they just jump in and out of relationships and they feel justified in each one. Whoremongering. Go ahead.
For them that defile themselves with mankind, for manstealers, for liars, for perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed Elohim, which was committed to my trust.
All right, that's as far as I want to go right there. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1. We have a question that says, I was doing some research on the Apocrypha removal from the King James Bible in 1885. Is this considered a reliable biblical source? I've been seeing contrasting comments about its usage. Just looking for some clarification. when it comes down to the things of the Apocrypha and really any other books, anytime I get to something and it gets to a point where I have to question the Torah, it's got to go. And let that be your rule of thumb. Now, there are some absolute great books in the Apocrypha. And which ones that I'm about? The ones for historical content. All right? This is why they did not want a lot of those. Now, they use some other things and say, oh, this is folklore. And then they threw some other stuff out as well. Now, why did they do that? Okay? Because it gives a little bit too much of a historical account of their deeds. Remember this thing, what was this television show, this old television show that used to come on, and it said the names have been protected. The names have been changed to protect the innocent or whatever. These names have been changed to protect the guilty. These books have been left out to protect the guilty because it specifically mentions some things. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and start at verse 18.
For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of Elohim. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not Elohim made foolish the wisdom of this world? For after that, in the wisdom of Elohim, the world by wisdom knew not Elohim. It pleased Elohim by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Yehudi require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom.
All right, pause right there. This is where I wanted to be. The Jews require a sign, but the Greeks seek after wisdom. So when you have this situation about questioning this Apocrypha, you have to think about what Israel is looking at the book for and what the Gentiles are looking at the book for. See, we may be looking at the same book, but we're looking at the same book differently. Okay? So remember, not too long ago, the 1619 Project came out. All of a sudden, the Gentiles now these are the same people who are seeking after wisdom. But once a book detailing their wrongs come out, the book was banned. All the other now you can go get the Codex crap and all the signs of devil worship. You can go buy that. You can go do that. You can read it in school. You can even read LGBTQ position book. You can get that for your kid. But you can't read that. So when it comes down to the things that detail their wrongdoings, it gets banned. There are certain social studies books where the things have been altered so that it will not give a pure definition of what happened during slavery or what happened with the Native Americans. They taught us, the natives were savages. Come to figure out, they were the savages. And what's funny is I was sitting here watching a documentary, and it was Kenny Rogers, the country singer. He's giving the rundown, and he's on the side of the Indians. The country dude is saying, no, it was us who were the savages. The natives were known for scalping. So they said they would cut off their head, the part of their scalp, or whatever. They didn't tell us that was retaliation, though. See, you see how the story gets told. They told us what the natives did. Are they not doing the same thing now? They told us what the natives did, but they didn't tell us what happened. The natives fought with a code. Old people women and children was off limits. Men fought men. They went to war like that. They come back to their village. The Gentiles have cut off the women's breasts, put it over their eyes, cut off the genitals, put it in their hand. They come back and their people, they not just dead, they are mutilated. Scalping was retaliation. Now you see how the story has gone that now all these natives are known for scalping. And it was in retaliation to what's done. How is it that the white man not known for genital cutting? Because let's go ahead and be honest. Those not the only genitals he cut. When they hung us on the trees, what else you think they did? They cut off the genitals. Now, how is it that the Indian can be known for scalping, but we don't we don't call him, genital cutter? How is it that he don't have that term attached to him? When it comes to seeking after wisdom, they know, all right, these things that are detailing our bad things, we won't print that, but we'll print theirs. Case in point. Let's go to Joel chapter 3. Joel chapter 3, right after Hosea and before Amos. So if you want to understand why they don't want, because when I tell you go into the Apocrypha, it gives names. It's talking about Alexander the Macedonian, Alexander the Great. It tells you that it was a Gentile that came in here and killed all of these true Israelites. Now these people are going to try to tell you that these people who look just like the Gentiles are Israelites. Wait a minute. Now you're confusing me now. So wait a minute. So the Greeks, the Romans, these are the people who did this? But now all of a sudden they have become Israel? So then the books that are going to have historical documentation, they don't want those. Joel chapter 3, let's start that at verse 1.
For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Yehudi and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
All right, so he says they have scattered his people among the nations. So when we look at how people have gotten scattered over the earth, we have to ask ourselves, these other individuals, if they were scattered, who scattered them? And my rule of thumb is, if you have a ticket, then you were not scattered. Go ahead.
And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
Right. I tell people that this is part of the reason why we can't stay away from Cavassier right now. They sold us for what they call brandy wine. What you think Cavassier and Hennessy is? It's brandy wine. They used to have songs about brandy wine. There you go. So you're talking about if you watch that little miniseries what they had, Book of the Negroes, you show them that they selling them for barrels of cognac. So here you have it. So you have this going on. We can pinpoint this in our history. We have to then ask these other individuals, can you show this in your history? So when you get down to these historical points, they don't like to include these things. So you might hear a whole lot of people talking about things, but Joel ain't one of them. Go ahead.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine?
Stop. Israel was called Canaan land. Canaan is a son of Ham, which is who we call Africans. Tyre and Zidon and coast of Palestine. Who sold us to who? Okay, so now we got Africans in the party. We don't even understand what it is we read. They have tried to convince us. First, what they did was they created a separation with this canal and then told us that there's something called the Middle East. Ain't no such thing called the Middle East. That's North Africa. So they want you to, first of all, you got to think that it's different, so you don't believe that any Africans were there. It was African land before Israel got it. But they want to convince you, ain't no black people, nowhere up in this area. See, black people all down there in South Africa. Y'all was down there way down. But the lineage in the book tells me something different. See? So because the Greeks seek out the wisdom, they also learn how to block you from getting that wisdom. Keep you in the Gospels so you'll sing and dance and shout. But you won't understand who you are in this book. But you'll learn how to praise dance. Go ahead.
Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Yehuda, the children of Jerusalem, have you sold unto the Grecians.
Stop. Wait a minute. So somebody sold the children of Israel to the Greeks. Okay, now go back into these history books. There's these Gentiles coming into Africa and they buying some people. But the people who's selling them look a lot like them. Okay. Here you go. So if you want to know why you're going to have that first and second Maccabees, I'm all about that. Other books, not so much. But that, down for it. But it's going to be some ugly detail in there. If you're going to keep reading the Maccabees, it's some ugly detail. I'm talking about that same slaughter, cutting off body parts. Interesting. Here we go again with the same things. So then we find this in different parts of history. So then you just have to understand that's just how these individuals operate. We're talking about killing the babies in front of the mother to encourage them to do all of these things. This is normal. This is what they do. So, when you talk about something like that, we might get convinced to believe that this has been taken out. We'll lump that in with like the book of Enoch and say, well, this was taken out. The book of Enoch need to be taken out and ran over and have gas from your lawnmower spill on it and then have your candle fall onto it. It ain't nothing but angel worship. It is newfound Christianity angel worship. The only time you have all these names is if it's trying to invoke you into worshiping these things. See, before I got into the word, I had been picked up all this other stuff from my family. They're giving you all these candles. You got the green candle for money. You got the red candle for love. You got the black candle, the water of evil. You have the white candle for purity. So I open up under my sink. I can't even get the Drano because all these damn candles is under here. I got to get all of this out of here. But those were the bits and pieces of things that I had picked up and the things that my family had, gotten me off into. And, you hold on to it because, when you're coming out, you're not quite sure you're going to come all the way out. So, believe you me, them little 15 I had under there, that was the low amount. That was just my reserve candle size. It was about 50 under there before, okay? So that was my reserve, and I finally got far enough out to say, all right, the reserve can go in the trash. I'm done. but we pick these things up. So when we're going through this, we're now having historical data. This is not something where you're going to shout and dance. This is not, some prophetic thing that is talking. No. I'm telling you what you did to my people. Now, it's some prophecy in it because it said, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do to you. Go ahead.
That ye might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whether ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head.
Right. So when these other individuals say that they are the true children of Israel and they got to places, but they were not sold there, we have to then ask the question: are all these prophets lying? Are they all lying? See, now you understand why certain books are just not going to be pushed. You're not gonna be flipping through TBN and have anybody reading Joel chapter 3. I guarantee you that. You're not gonna be flipping or listening to somebody on TBN and hear them go through the Maccabees. Go ahead.
And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off, for Yahweh hath spoken it.
In other words, they're going to sell yours back to the Africans. Go ahead.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war.
Wait a minute, who?
The Gentiles.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves, and come all ye hither, and gather yourselves together round about. Hither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be weakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, and the fat overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining.
Now this is the same thing we heard several prophets say. This is the same thing we heard Yahshua say. So now we're back connecting the same thing that Yahshua said, and I think that's Matthew 24, where he's going through some of those things, but now we hear Joel connecting it to the selling of the children of Israel to the Grecians. So if the people over in the land say that they are the Jews, they should then be able to show us where they were sold to the people who went over there and so-called set them up in the land. According to my book. That's what my book say. Because this says that they were sold and the Greeks were in the sale. So then these individuals who just so happen to look Greek have to then be able to show us how they were sold by the people. Now, isn't it just a little bit ironic, if you will? The same people who sold you is now went over and conquered this whole land, gave you all the weaponry, took all the Palestinian weapon, de-armed them, and then marched out so that you could slaughter them. Does that sound like some people who did all this harm to you before? Right. Go ahead.
And Yahweh also shall roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But Yahweh will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel. So shall you know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no stranger pass through her anymore.
Now, no stranger shall pass through her anymore. What's he talking about? Every time that we got into trouble, they would turn around and bring other people in the land of Israel and kick us out. So when you have all of this where people brag, well, my people have been over here for centuries. Yeah, I know. I can go in my book and find out when you got there. Many different groups of people can lay claim and say our people have been here for generations. I know. And that's what he said. He gonna make sure don't happen no more. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountain shall drop down new wine, and the hills shall flow with milk, and all the rivers of Yehuda shall flow with waters, and the fountain shall come forth of the house of Yahweh, and shall water the valley of Shittim. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness, for the violence against the children of Yehuda, because they have shed innocent blood in their land.
Now understand, this means that the children are gonna have to pay for the things that were done in generations. People say, well, that ain't right. Well, we ain't the ones that stood before the mount and said, all that you have said, Yahweh, well, we will do, and then turn around and didn't do it. But we having to deal with it, ain't we? Okay, go ahead.
But Judah shall dwell forever in Jerusalem, for generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for Yahweh dwelleth in Zion.
All right. We had another question. Says, how do the males make an appearance on the 3 required holy days while watching online in another state? Like we said, there are the 3 times. We make sure that when we do our things, we announce it so that even though we are separate, we're all going out at the same time. We then go outside. We face the east, for we are facing toward the holy city. And then we offer up our prayers and supplications for our family. And then we then give an offering each male. I've said all of the time, this is for the males. I know there are situations where sisters were like, look, I don't have a male in my house, per se, but I got a son. And, they make sure that those things are done, because when an appearance is made, you do not come empty, which goes into another question. This says, last night, you said we should not come before Yahweh empty or have money in our hands. I thought that was only for first fruits. Please explain. So let's go to Exodus chapter 23. And Exodus 23, I want to start at verse 13.
And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of your mouth.
Right. So when you talk about, what do you think the angels are? This God, lowercase g. It says, make no mention of other gods. Why do you think we don't even know but 3 names of angels? Yet, when we read in the book, it says there's an innumerable company of angels. It is so many angels that you would try to list the names of everybody just in the state that you live in. That's an impossible situation. Well, you didn't think about this. That there's an innumerable company of angels, but we can't find an innumerable list of names until we get some of these folklore books who now have all of these other things in it, whether it be right or wrong. Who knows? Because Lucifer, no doubt has his own, if he has his own following, okay? If he was able to take a great percentage of the angels, then don't you think they have doctrine? Go ahead.
3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I command thee, in the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in it thou comest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty.
Now, when it says, and none shall appear before me empty, that is not just talking about this one situation. Keep reading. Because he said, it talks about first fruits. You got to understand that each one of these things are the harvest of your first fruits. See, you got different harvests. Things are becoming ripe at different times. Just like all your animals not going to be born, at the same time. You're going to always still have, a firstborn that openeth the matrix constantly. That's not just going to happen once. There's going to be once for this one, once for that one, once for this one. So then you're still going to have that situation ongoing. So go ahead, keep reading.
And the feast of harvest, the first fruit of thy labors.
The feast of harvest. That ain't the feast of unleavened bread. See? But then it says what? The first fruit. So do understand, when they talk about your first fruit, that's not that one thing. Everything we do, we have first fruit. If you plant in a garden at this house, that's the first fruit from that garden. But then you plant something else a mile down the road, you got first fruit from that too. So we have to understand, what that means, and the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labor, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year. Now you pulling all of that. All of this is about your harvest. These are all of the things that you are getting to sustain yourself. And as an offering, we offer that up unto Yahweh. So this is why when we do make an appearance, none shall appear before him empty. You're making an appearance in each one of these harvests. How can anybody show up empty? You just got through harvesting. How is it you don't have anything? Go ahead.
3 times in the year, all thy males shall appear before Yahweh thy Elohim. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread.
All right, that's as far as I want to go right there. Let's go to Exodus chapter 34. Started at verse 18. Exodus 34 and verse 18.
The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I command thee, in the time of the month Abib. For in the month Abib thou came out from Egypt. All that openeth, the matrix, is mine.
That's the womb. All right. That's what the movie The Matrix is. If you notice, they were growing people. All right. So the matrix is the womb. Go ahead.
And every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with the lamb. And if thou redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck.
All right. So then now you're talking about the first fruit of those animals. You're going to have constantly a first fruit. It says the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with the lamb. Verse 19, all that opens the matrix is mine. And every firstling among your cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. So each one of those, you're going to have the first of this is the first time, or the first time that this one has brought forth something. Boom. So this is not just a one-time situation and you lump all the cattle together and you just offer one thing. That's something that we have to understand. Go ahead.
All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty.
None shall now listen. It says, now he's talking about your firstborn, but he gives you the right to redeem that. What does that mean, redeem? That means you don't have to sacrifice them. But then it comes right back to the very thing that he said in the beginning, talking about Feast of Unleavened Bread. None shall appear before me empty. He just got through talking about men. So understand how, that is connected. The earth and the fullness therein belongs to Yahweh. So for us to get something out of that, we then need to show appreciation to our Elohim that he has brought sustenance out of the same ground that he brought us. And we don't even consider certain things that we do as disrespectful. It says, from the dust you came, to the dust you shall return. What we do, I was watching some things on some movies, man. It was real cool. You know what I'm saying? Where they burn the body, they put it on fire. You know what I'm saying? You put the body on an urn, man. You know what I'm saying? Put it in the urn and put it right there on the fireplace. You know what I'm saying? I think that's real cool. Yahweh said you came from the ground. That's where you're supposed to go back. But now we done watched all these other people. Now where we get this from? They're Valhalla rising. All right. So this is their little Viking. They already worshiped heaven way before any Christianity. So please don't think this is a Christian thing. This is a worship the host of heaven thing way before they picked up anything else. So when they do their little heaven worship, they put the body on a raft in the water, set the body on fire, push it out. What happened? The ashes float up. Anything you burn, the ashes float. Okay, to them they go into heaven. Now, we turn around and we are wholeheartedly into the heaven thing, not understanding where any of it comes from. You don't read not one person dealing with that. They talk about as much as Yahweh used Dawid and how much he loved him. He said he dead and buried. And this sepulcher is with us to this day. When even though Yahshua had love for Lazarus, it said, your brother shall rise again. She said, I know my brother gonna rise again in the resurrection at the last day. She never thought her brother would go into heaven. And that was the friend of Yahshua. But now we so stuck on it, we actually believe the game. Everybody else know they playing. We actually believe the game. They know what they doing. Just like when folks get ready to keep 12 days of Christmas, and we keep one because we can't afford the other 11. Oh, they know what they doing. Go in there and talk to them about the paganism. They'll tell, I know. I know this paganism. I know. Your people don't know this paganism. I know this paganism. They know what they're doing. But we have bought the hype and don't really consider what's happening. Now, it says none shall appear before me empty, right? So let's go to Matthew chapter 25. You got something? Go ahead.
Yeah, in verse 20 of Exodus, was that like prophecy included there? Because Yahshua was writing like a quote, like when he's writing through.
Man, why you gotta go there, man? See, man, you gotta go there.
It's like prophecies included in the law there.
Yeah, man, and some Hebrews just rode to Passover on a horse. Man, yeah. It's definitely prophecy, but, man, here we go. The Jews require a sign, all right? So you got to be careful about these signs. At least somebody find that and give you what that is you're looking for. So folks coming in marching on horses and all of this, and and they got full get up, which is funny, man. When you look at the outfits look more Roman than Hebrew. You have to understand what the Roman garb is, and then you look at it like, okay, so are you supposed to be the Messiah? Are you supposed to be the one who killed him? I'm confused on which role you playing. I don't know which role you playing here. Got the long cape on the back, draping down the horse. I think that ain't, who is that? That's Caesar, ain't it? I don't know, man. We something else. But most definitely, brother, is prophecy. But like it always warned, there are some that are going to be fooled by the miracles that this beast and false prophet are able to do. So we look at something, and if the power of the adversary gives one of them individuals a work to do, if you got people just falling down on that, if a false miracle happened, it's a done deal. You gonna have to fight our people to keep them from running and grabbing a hold to it. Let's go Matthew chapter 25, and I want to go start at verse 22.
He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Master, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them.
Mm-hmm.
His master said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Adonai.
Now, here is Yahshua giving this out. All right, now go ahead.
Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said,
Now, understand something now. He gave them this thing, and then he went on a journey and came back. This is harvest. Okay? You plant, and after a while, you come back and receive of the fruits of that which you have planted. That's what you will reap, what you have sown. See, that's a gardening term. You will reap, meaning that it will grow. What you have sown, meaning what you have planted. If you plant evil in the earth shall grow evil with your name on it. That's what it's talking about. So, keep reading.
Master, I know thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathered where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine.
Now, so then if he has the one that he was given, that means he has now showed up in the presence of Yahshua empty. Go ahead.
His master answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knowest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou ought therefore to put my money to the exchanger, and then at my coming I shall have received mine own with a surety.
With interest. Go ahead.
Okay. Take therefore the talent from him.
Take the talent from him.
And give it unto him which hath 10 talents.
Check that out. Take it from him and give it to the one that have 10. Go ahead.
For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath.
Right. If you have not, it's going to be taken from you, even that which you don't have. Because you took his substance and buried it in the earth. And when it was time of harvest, when he came to seek his fruit, you showed up empty. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that's in the law. This is no different. We read this and think that this is totally new. Man, this is stuff Moshe was talking about. Yeshua just did it another way. But it's the same thing. Let's go to Mark chapter 11. Mark 11, and I want to read verses 12 through 14.
And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if haply he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet.
Now, this is interesting, all right? Now, it's not time for the fig tree to have figs. Read.
And Yahshua answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. And they came to Jerusalem, and Yahshua went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple.
I jump to verse 20.
And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots.
When he came to it, it did not have fruit. It was not even time for it to have fruit. Now, you don't know when the harvest has come. See, he has given you a talent. Have you buried it in the earth? When he shows up, and he ain't telling you when he's showing up, he shall show up at harvest, and he's looking for his own with interest. You can't give him back the same thing that he gave you. You are supposed to be a profitable servant. Go ahead.
And Cephas, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. And Yahshua answering, saith unto them, Have faith in Elohim.
Right. So it didn't have fruit for its master. Therefore, it was cursed. And it withered away. Now it shall never have fruit. Isn't that the same thing? There should be wailing, weeping, and gnashing of teeth. Isn't that the same thing? Take this from him and cast him into outer darkness. Is that not the same thing? When it was time to be fruitful, he was not. He was in the fig tree, was in the presence of its creator. And it appeared empty. Now it shall be empty for eternity. This is why I say, I don't care if you bring a penny, you better show up with something. I'm not saying this stuff so that I can bag your money. I want you to understand where it's coming from. It showed up empty, and it shall ever be empty. We got one more thing I want to deal with, and this was asking about the part. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And we're going to start that at verse 24.
And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat. This is my blood, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye, as oft as you drink it, in remembrance of me.
Now, this is the question. When it says in remembrance of me, you have individuals that are well, the whole question was about, what is my take on how oft you do this? We have to understand that this is taking place at Passover, okay? There's already a time that was set for us to do it. Of course, what we were given in Sunday church is communion. And, they did communion every, first, of the month or first Sunday or whatever. Now, they didn't even do communion right. Because communion is supposed to be, what did he say? Let's just look at this. When he had given thanks, he brake it and said, take, eat. This verse 24. This is my body, which is broken for you. Then verse 25. In the same manner, he also took the cup and said, this is the New Testament in my blood. So there was bread and wine. The bread was unleavened. The wine was real wine. What do they give you on communion? A cracker that's got leaven in it. Leaven is a representation of sin. Then they give you grape juice. So you got fake body and fake blood. And you wonder why you might end up being a fake individual. Here it is. You just took, communion. I don't know what that is. This is communion. Because it doesn't fit anything that we read in this book. It is fake body and fake blood. Because we too holy to have wine in the shush. See, we can't have wine in the shush. That's just absolutely, that's evil. Cannot have wine in the shush. First miracle he did. Turn water into wine. But we too holy. So now we can't possibly follow that right. So you have many problems with the communion. And it ain't just them doing it once every month. You got to ask that question about that cracker and that grape juice that's there. Well, they say, grape juice is, it's like pre-wine. It's wine before it's time. Well, my book said Noah drunk wine and he got drunk so much that he couldn't find his trousers. So I know I've drunk a lot of Welch's grape juice. I've never gotten tipsy on the best Concord grape juice ever. So I tell you, those two things are different. So says me. Okay? And I have tasted both. So I think I can answer that one without a question that there's something seriously wrong with that. Being that we have this, there's also parts where it says, be careful, for some of you are sickly. There's many sickly among you. For some do this unworthily. Wait a minute. While we are being passed out this communion, how many people have been baptized in the name of the Messiah and they're just passing this out to anybody? You just come off the street, here, come take communion. Wait a minute. Did you ask these people, were they baptized? Are they believer? What are you doing? Just giving it to anybody. That's reckless. It is absolutely reckless. If it says be careful, because many are sickly among you because it is, how do you just pass it out without asking any questions? Now, if they lie, they lie. But you never ask any questions. You just pass around, you know what I'm saying, this big thing with all these cups in it, and nobody says anything. There's a problem there. And therein lies where we have to draw this line and decide whether we're going to try to appeal to the masses so that we can be more popular and make more money, or whether or not we're going to be servants for the Most High Elohim and let him take care of what we need. That's all that we're going to do for tonight. That's all we got time for. I got to give my new helper some time to go to bed. All right. So you did wonderful, brother. You did wonderful, man.
Are we off air?
You did wonderful, man. No, we ain't off air. Yeah. We ain't off air. All right, now we finna go off air. Well, let's rise and we gonna give a prayer on our way out. We're going to rise and face the east. All males, remove your head covering. Females always pray with their head covered. Abba Father, Most High Covenant Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Abba Father, we thank you. We thank you, Father, for we are not worthy. We are not worthy to have the understanding that you have given unto us. But we thank you. And we pray, Father, that you would never take it away. We pray, Father, that you would never take this thirst for understanding of your word away. We pray, Father, that you would allow that thirst to magnify in us. And we pray, Father, that you would fill it. And we pray, Father, that you would put it in our hearts and our minds, that we would walk in the things that you reveal unto us. For many people just come for knowledge. Knowledge without understanding and without a heart to walk in it is unfruitful knowledge. Let it not be so with us, Abba Father. We thank you that you have given us a little sanctuary whereby we can gather together to read out of the legacy that you have left unto us. We pray, Abba Father, that you would bless the work of our hands, that we may be able to even build us another place, that we may be able to worship you and keep all of your holy days and serve you in truth and in righteousness as best that we know how. We ask these prayers not only for those that gather with us here physically, but even those that gather by way of phones and by way of internet, those that gather out of a pure heart to serve you in truth and in spirit. We ask these prayers in Yeshua HaMashiach's holy and divine name, to whom rule, power, honor, majesty, and might was given forever and ever. Amen and hallelujah.